You've been meditating for weeks, maybe even months. You sit there, eyes closed, trying to focus on your breath. But instead of peace, you feel frustrated. Instead of calm, you feel anxious. And you start wondering, what am I doing wrong? Here's the truth nobody tells you. Meditation isn't failing you. You're just missing one critical psychological piece that makes the whole thing actually work. And once you understand this, everything changes. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. Most meditation teachers won't admit this, but the failure rate for meditation is absolutely massive. Studies show that around 70% of people who start a meditation practice quit within the first few months. 70%. That's not because people are lazy or undisciplined. It's because we've been taught meditation completely wrong. We've been sold this idea that meditation is about clearing your mind, about thinking of nothing, about achieving some Zen-like state of emptiness. And when we can't do that, when thoughts keep coming and coming and coming, we think we're broken. We think meditation just isn't for us. But here's what nobody tells you. That's not what meditation is actually about. Not even close. The missing piece, the thing that changes everything, is understanding what your mind is actually doing when you meditate. And more importantly, understanding why it resists so damn hard. Think about it this way. Your mind has been your survival tool for your entire life. It's the thing that's kept you safe, helped you plan, warned you about dangers, and reminded you of past mistakes so you wouldn't repeat them. Your mind has literally kept you alive. So when you sit down and tell it to just stop, to be quiet, to let go, what do you think happens? It panics. It thinks you're trying to shut down your primary defense system. It's like telling your immune system to take a break while you're surrounded by viruses. Your mind goes into overdrive precisely because you're trying to make it stop. This is the psychological piece everyone misses. Meditation isn't about fighting your mind. It's about changing your relationship with it. It's about stepping back and watching your mind do its thing without getting tangled up in every single thought that passes through. But we've never been taught how to do that. We've been taught to control our thoughts, to push away the bad ones, to hold on to the good ones. We've spent our entire lives identifying with our thoughts, believing that we are our thoughts. And then suddenly we're supposed to just observe them? That's a massive psychological shift that nobody prepares us for. Let me give you an example. You sit down to meditate. You close your eyes. You start focusing on your breath. And then a thought pops up. Maybe it's something you forgot to do at work, or a conversation you had yesterday that didn't go well, or what you're going to make for dinner. And immediately, without even realizing it, you're no longer meditating. You're in that thought. You're replaying that conversation, imagining different ways it could have gone, feeling the emotions all over again. 5 minutes later, you suddenly remember, oh wait, I'm supposed to be meditating. And then you feel guilty. You feel like you failed. So you try harder. You try to force the thoughts away. And guess what happens? More thoughts. Louder thoughts. More persistent thoughts. This is where most people give up. Because it feels impossible. It feels like your mind is actually getting worse, not better. But here's the secret. That's actually progress. You're becoming aware of just how active your mind actually is. Before you started meditating, all of this was happening anyway. All these thoughts, all this mental chatter, all this jumping from one thing to another. But you didn't notice it. You were completely identified with it. You were inside the storm without realizing there was a storm. Now you're starting to see it. And yes, at first that's overwhelming. It's like turning on a light in a room you thought was empty and realizing it's actually packed with stuff. But once you can see it, you can work with it. So what's the actual psychological shift you need to make? It's this. You need to understand that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that notices the thoughts. This sounds simple, maybe even obvious, but it's actually revolutionary. Most of us have spent our entire lives thinking we are our thoughts. When a thought says I'm not good enough, we believe that's true. When a thought says I'm anxious, we become anxious. When a thought says I'm angry, we act from anger. We've never separated ourselves from the voice in our head. But think about it. If you can notice a thought, if you can observe it, then you can't be the thought itself. The observer and the observed are two different things. When you watch a car drive by, you're not the car. When you watch a cloud float across the sky, you're not the cloud. And when you watch a thought move through your mind, you're not that thought. You're the space in which the thought appears. You're the awareness that notices it. This is the missing piece. And once you get this, meditation becomes completely different. It's no longer about making your mind empty or quiet. It's about practicing this separation. It's about noticing thoughts and recognizing that they're just thoughts. They're not facts. They're not commands. They're just mental events that come and go. And you get to choose whether to engage with them or just let them pass. But here's why this is so hard. We've been conditioned our entire lives to take every thought seriously. When your mind says you should worry about something, you worry. When it says you should feel bad about yourself, you feel bad. When it says something is dangerous or wrong or urgent, you react. We've been trained to be obedient to our thoughts. We've never questioned whether the thoughts are actually true or helpful or necessary. We've just assumed they are. Because again, we think we are our thoughts. So questioning a thought feels like questioning ourselves. Let me give you another example. Let's say you're meditating and a thought pops up that says this is pointless. You're wasting your time. You should be doing something productive. For most people, that thought immediately ends the meditation. Because we believe it. We take it as truth. We think, okay, yeah, maybe this is pointless. Maybe I should be answering emails or doing laundry or literally anything else. And we get up and we stop. But if you understand that you're not your thoughts, you can watch that thought appear and just notice it. Oh, there's a thought telling me this is pointless. Interesting. And then you can let it pass. You don't have to argue with it. You don't have to prove it wrong. You just notice it and come back to your breath. This is what meditation actually is. It's a repetition of that process. Thought appears, you notice it, you come back to your anchor, whatever that is, your breath, a mantra, a sensation in your body. Thought appears again, you notice it, you come back. Over and over and over. And here's what happens over time. The gap between noticing the thought and coming back gets shorter. You catch yourself faster. You get less tangled up in the stories your mind tells. You start to see patterns. Oh, my mind always goes to worry in the mornings. My mind always criticizes me when I'm trying something new. My mind always jumps to worst-case scenarios. And when you can see these patterns, they lose their power over you. But there's another psychological piece here that most people miss. And it's huge. We've been taught to see certain thoughts and emotions as enemies. Anxiety is bad. Sadness is bad. Anger is bad. Restlessness is bad. So when these things come up during meditation, we try to push them away. We try to get back to that calm, peaceful state we think we're supposed to achieve. And this creates a war inside us. We're fighting with ourselves. We're rejecting parts of our own experience. And that's exhausting. That's why people burn out on meditation. The psychological shift you need to make here is acceptance. Not acceptance in the sense of giving up or resigning yourself to feeling bad, but acceptance in the sense of allowing your experience to be what it is without immediately trying to change it. When anxiety comes up during meditation, instead of thinking, oh no, I shouldn't be anxious, I'm doing this wrong, you just notice it. Oh, there's anxiety. I can feel it in my chest, in my throat. There's a thought saying something bad might happen, and you just let it be there. You don't push it away. You don't grab onto it. You just observe it with curiosity. This is radically different from how most of us have been taught to deal with uncomfortable emotions. We've been taught to distract ourselves, to think positive thoughts, to make the bad feelings go away as quickly as possible. But meditation teaches you something different. It teaches you that feelings and thoughts come and go on their own. You don't have to do anything about them. They arise, they peak, they fade. Like waves in the ocean. If you can just stay present with them, without getting swept away by them, they naturally pass. And here's the incredible thing. When you stop fighting with your own mind, when you stop trying to force it to be quiet or peaceful or calm, it actually settles down on its own. Not because you made it happen, but because you stopped stirring it up with all that resistance and effort. It's like when you have a glass of muddy water. If you keep shaking it, trying to make it clear, it stays muddy. But if you just set it down and leave it alone, the mud settles by itself. Your mind works the same way. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. This all sounds great in theory, but how do I actually do this? How do I make this shift? And that's a fair question, because understanding something intellectually is very different from experiencing it. So let me give you some practical steps. First, you need to start small. And I mean really small. Most people fail at meditation because they think they need to sit for 30 minutes or an hour. They set this huge goal and then feel guilty when they can't do it. But the psychological shift I'm talking about doesn't require long sessions. It requires consistency. Start with 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes a day. Set a timer. Sit somewhere comfortable. Close your eyes. And just notice what's happening in your mind. Don't try to change it. Don't try to make it stop. Just watch. What thoughts are coming up? What does your mind want to do? Just observe it like you're a scientist studying something fascinating. Second, stop judging yourself. This is massive. Every time you notice you've gotten lost in thought, that's actually a success. That moment of noticing is the meditation. That's the whole point. So instead of thinking, ugh, I got distracted again, I'm so bad at this, try thinking, oh cool, I noticed I was thinking. That's exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. Celebrate those moments. They're the reps. They're the practice. The more times you notice and come back, the stronger that awareness muscle gets. Third, permit yourself to be bad at this. Seriously, you're going to be bad at it. Your mind is going to wander constantly. You're going to forget you're meditating. You're going to get frustrated. That's all completely normal. It's not a sign that you're doing it wrong. It's a sign that you're doing it right. You're seeing what your mind actually does when you're not distracting it with phones and computers and television and a million other things. And that's valuable information. Fourth, understand that meditation isn't about feeling good. This might be the biggest misconception of all. People start meditating because they want to feel peaceful and calm and blissed out. And sometimes that happens. But a lot of the time, meditation brings up uncomfortable stuff. Memories you've been avoiding. Emotions you've been suppressing. Thoughts you don't want to think. And that's not a bug, that's a feature. Your mind has been storing all of this stuff. And when you finally sit still and quiet, it comes up to be processed. That's healthy. That's healing. But it doesn't feel good in the moment. So you need to adjust your expectations. Meditation isn't about feeling good. It's about feeling everything and being okay with it. Let me tell you about a psychological concept that really helped me understand this. It's called experiential avoidance. It's the idea that a huge amount of our suffering comes from trying to avoid uncomfortable thoughts and feelings. We don't want to feel anxious, so we avoid situations that might make us anxious. We don't want to feel sad, so we distract ourselves with work or food or entertainment. We don't want to think certain thoughts, so we push them away and fill our minds with other stuff. And all of that avoidance creates tension. It creates this constant background stress of running away from parts of our own experience. Meditation is the opposite of experiential avoidance. It's experiential acceptance. It's saying, okay, I'm going to sit here, and I'm going to let whatever comes up come up, and I'm not going to run from it. I'm just going to be with it. And at first, that's terrifying, because we're so used to avoiding. We're so used to controlling. But over time, you start to realize that the things you were running from aren't actually as dangerous as you thought. They're just experiences. They're just sensations and thoughts and emotions. And you can handle them. You're stronger than you thought. This is the deep psychological work that meditation does. It's not about becoming calm and zen and untouchable. It's about becoming more fully yourself. It's about reclaiming all the parts of your experience that you've been rejecting or avoiding or fighting against. It's about becoming whole. And that process isn't always comfortable, but it's incredibly powerful. Now, there's one more psychological piece I want to talk about, and it's about why our minds resist meditation so much. I mentioned earlier that your mind thinks it's protecting you, but there's more to it than that. Your mind is also protecting your sense of identity. Think about it. Who are you? If I asked you that question, you'd probably tell me about your job, your relationships, your beliefs, and your personality traits. You'd tell me a story about yourself. And all of that story is made of thoughts. It's made of narratives you've constructed about who you are and what your life means. When you meditate, when you start to observe your thoughts instead of identifying with them, that sense of identity starts to loosen. And that's scary, because if you're not your thoughts, then who are you? If you're not the story you've been telling yourself, then what are you? This is an existential question, and your mind doesn't like existential questions. It likes certainty. It likes solid ground. So it resists. It throws up distractions. It tells you meditation is pointless, or you're doing it wrong, or you should be doing something else. Anything to keep you from loosening your grip on that familiar sense of self. But here's the beautiful thing. On the other side of that resistance is freedom. Because when you realize that you're not your thoughts, when you realize that you're not the story you've been telling yourself, you become free to change. You're no longer locked into patterns that don't serve you. You're no longer trapped by beliefs about yourself that might not even be true. You become fluid. You become adaptable. You become more fully alive. And this is why meditation is so transformative for people who stick with it. It's not because they achieve some perfect state of inner peace. It's because they change their relationship with themselves. They stop being at war with their own minds. They stop believing every thought that pops up. They stop identifying with every emotion that passes through. They become more spacious, more accepting, more present, and that changes everything. So if you've tried meditation and it didn't work, if you felt like you were doing it wrong or it just made you more anxious or frustrated, I want you to understand that wasn't your fault. You weren't doing it wrong. You just didn't have the full picture. You didn't understand what was actually happening psychologically. You didn't know about this shift from being your thoughts to observing your thoughts. You didn't know that the resistance and the discomfort were actually part of the process. You didn't know that noticing you're distracted is the meditation. Now you know. And that changes everything. Because now you can approach meditation differently. Not as a performance. Not as something you need to be good at. But as a practice. As a laboratory where you study your own mind. Where you get curious about how you tick. Where you learn to be with yourself, all of yourself, even the parts you don't like. Where you practice the radical act of acceptance. And I'm going to be honest with you. This isn't easy. It's actually really hard. It goes against everything you've been conditioned to do. It asks you to sit still when your mind wants to run. It asks you to feel things when you'd rather numb out. It asks you to let go when you want to control. But it's also one of the most valuable things you can do. Because the skills you develop in meditation, that awareness, that acceptance, that ability to observe your thoughts without getting caught in them, those skills transfer to every area of your life. Your relationships get better because you're not reacting to every trigger. Your work gets better because you're not caught in anxious spirals. Your mood stabilizes because you're not at the mercy of every passing emotion. You become more yourself, and that's worth the effort. So here's what I want you to do. Try it again. But this time, try it with this new understanding. Don't try to clear your mind. Don't try to achieve anything. Just sit for 5 minutes and watch what your mind does. Notice the thoughts. Notice when you get caught in them. Notice when you realize you've been caught. And every time you notice, celebrate it. That's a win. That's the practice. Do that every day for a week and see what happens. And more importantly, notice how you feel about yourself and your mind. Does anything shift? I'm genuinely curious about your experience with this. Have you struggled with meditation? Did this explanation help you understand why? Or maybe you've had success with meditation, and you discovered this psychological shift on your own. Either way, I want to hear about it. Drop a comment below and let me know where you are in your meditation journey. What's been the hardest part for you? What questions do you still have? Let's discuss this, as I believe this conversation is particularly important. And look, if this video resonated with you, if it gave you a new perspective on meditation or your own mind, do me a favor. Hit that like button. It actually helps more people find this content. And if you want more videos about psychology, about how your mind actually works, about practices that can genuinely change your life, subscribe to the channel. Because we're just getting started. There's so much more to explore, so much more to understand about ourselves. And I want you to be part of that journey. Thanks for watching. Now go sit with your mind and see what happens. You might surprise yourself.